Today we're checking out 20 conspiracy theories you need to hear. Some of these will intrigue you, other ones will make you think, I don't know, maybe, and others will make you question everything. It's pretty simple. A conspiracy is a secret plan by a group to do something, and a theory is a plausible explanation used to explain phenomena. Combine the two together, and you've got people sharing their thoughts on why certain things happen, and why certain people do what they do. Today we're checking out 20 of these theories, so before we get started, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out my Patreon for a ton of exclusive videos, link in the description, and let's get into it.
The older I get, the less tolerance I have for people who are not even a slight conspiracy theorists. How do you grow up in America? You live in America, you have access to all this information. You get to the age of 20, 25, and you're still not a conspiracy theorist, at least a little bit. There's not one conspiracy you believe in. Sometimes when I talk to people and I pick up on the fact that they're not attuned to the conspiracies, the way the world works, really, I get so frustrated because I'm like, I can't talk to you because this is what I care about. I care about these conspiracies. I care about how weird and fucked up the world is and the government's lying to us. Like, that's interesting to me. That's intellectually stimulating to talk about. So when you meet people that like look at you like you have 8 heads when you start talking about this stuff, I can't relate. It's like, come on. You don't at least a little bit believe we live in a simulation? Even in like a joking way?
Who doesn't love a good conspiracy theory? Because I just read one, and this person, it made sense. They said that they believe that the government doesn't want schools to teach cursive anymore to the future generations because if they can't read cursive, then they won't know what the Constitution and stuff says. So they will have to depend on the government to like interpret like what it says for them. So pretty much they could kind of have them believe whatever they want them to believe. And that made me think, I'm not saying it's true, it's called a conspiracy theory. I love things that make me stop and think and kind of go, could this be true? Of course, it's not like we'll ever really know the answer to it, but
this is why I think everything is a scam. Okay, so for as long as my family lineage is thousands and thousands of years, you're telling me nobody has been able to pass anything down? Where has it all gone? Thousands of years of greats, and nobody was able to pass down nothing? That's fishy. I don't know. Something ain't right.
Okay, I can't be the only one in LA that's dealing with this. I just got back from the tire shop. This is my 3rd time in like 2 months because I keep getting nails in my tires. And then I start thinking about it and I'm like, why the hell, where are nails coming from? What are they doing on the streets that there's so many nails? And then I was like, if I owned a tire shop and I was a scumbag, I'd probably just drive around and freaking put nails everywhere and be like, yeah, they'll never know. And you know, they're gonna have to come to us and get tires. And I don't know, anybody that's working at a tire shop in LA or anywhere, is this a thing? Like, do they literally do this? Because it's driving me crazy and I'm like spending so much money on tires out here. It's insane. So yeah, I don't know. If y'all are doing that, you're screwed up, but I guess there's no way to fix it, but I need some clarity.
My hot take is that I don't think recycling is real. I do it because in case it is real, I want to make sure that I'm doing my part. But you cannot convince me that they are really separating all of that stuff and that they are making new stuff out of my stuff. I just don't believe it. Especially for like city-run trash disposal. The government can't give me basic rights or human services. You mean to tell me that they're making like brand new material out of my water bottles? I don't know.
I am not usually a conspiracy theorist, but I have one cooking and I genuinely believe it. I wholeheartedly believe that the reason the government does not take care of our veterans better is because keeping our veterans in a place where they're constantly having to survive instead of thrive means that they are far less likely to be able to participate in a form of resistance against the government. And I think that their input in a resistance would be our best shot at actually overthrowing an authoritarian government.
These are conspiracy theories my 6th graders told me that they believe in, and I'm going to try to read them with a straight face. Bill Nye the Science Guy is a Russian spy. When I asked them to elaborate further, they could not. Birds are not real and they are FBI drones. I've heard this one before. Makes sense to me. Michael Jackson is still alive. For reference, these students were born after 2009, so that was interesting. Thanksgiving was only made so America could have a holiday in each month. When I asked a student to elaborate, they said that the story between the Pilgrims and Native Americans were fabricated. Last one, Mr. Beast scams people for subscribers.
What happened to bread, guys? Because I do not remember bread ever being like this. Squishing it, it just doesn't feel like it's real bread. I just squished this. It should be completely demolished. Applying pressure. This comes back up. What is in the food that they are feeding us? It's not even squished. Just coming back up as if it was not squished at all.
Okay, so quickly I wanted to offer up this theory that I heard a while ago and I can't help but not share it. Essentially, it is the ants on a highway theory, and it basically says that aliens could exist around us already, but we don't have the mental capacity or the technology to understand them or to see them, in the same sense that ants can build a whole colony and reside next to a highway but not ever be able to understand what a highway is, why it's there, who built it, etc. So it kind of freaks me out because I've always thought what if aliens existed in a noise frequency or a color that we can't perceive? It's the same deal, right? We don't have the ability to perceive them, so they don't exist.
Have you ever noticed how everything you own is worthless, but if someone else is selling it, it's worth more? No, what are you talking about? I need to buy a whole new set of clothes, right? How much will that cost me? You can get a bunch of new clothes for $200. Okay, well, what about when I'm done with the clothes? They're basically worthless. You're probably better off giving them away. What are the people I give them to going to do with them? They're going to sell them. Why can't I sell them? Because they're not worth anything. Okay, but what if I just say they're worth something, then the people who are going to buy them from the other person can buy them from me for something instead of nothing? It doesn't work like that. Okay, well, everything's expensive now, and I need money, so maybe I'll sell my car. It's a good idea. Used cars are pretty expensive nowadays. Great, how much is mine worth? Oh, yours is worth nothing. Okay, what about a car that someone else is selling that's exactly like mine? Oh, that would be worth something. So when I sell my car for nothing and I have to replace it, I'll have to pay something. Yeah, why can't I just sell mine for something? It doesn't work like that.
Have you heard the Anne Hathaway conspiracy theory? If you didn't know, Anne Hathaway is married to a man named Adam Schulman. And Adam Schulman just happens to look exactly like William Shakespeare here. William Shakespeare, the same man whose wife's name was Anne Hathaway. There were rumors that Anne Hathaway's parents did name her after Anne Hathaway because they were really into Shakespeare. Anyway, the entirety of the conspiracy theory is that Anne Hathaway and her husband are William Shakespeare and his wife reincarnate. I will take any opportunity I can get to talk about this.
I'm gonna just touch it. It's not sand.
That's
it's
real,
plaster.
Mom. No, it's not.
It's plaster.
Mom, don't. There's literally a sign that says "Do not touch" right there.
Any sign. It is plaster.
Oh
There's
God,
no sand.
Mom.
When you have a sandcastle at the beach and you touch it, you make a hole in it. That is hard as a rock. So they just ship it from place to place. This is fake sandcastle.
No way.
It's not real.
Yes, it is.
No, we could go to the beach and I can make you a little castle, but the water will wash it away. We had a thunderstorm today and a tornado, and it's still here. You're gonna tell me that little woman that lived in that shoe would still look like that after those storms we had today? No. Jordan says, they do this in New Jersey too. They ship these things around the country. They say 24/7, but that's not true. They can't hire policemen. You think they're going to hire a security guard to protect that? That's just a deterrent, that sign. It's fake.
Just like the statue.
Yep, it's all fake.
Okay, I'm really big into conspiracy theory, so imagine there's a company out there that collects data. Maybe they get a piece of your hair, or maybe you spit into a tube and you send it in and you pay for it, and they somehow tell you all about your DNA makeup and possible brothers and sisters that you didn't know about, and distant relatives and things like that, right? And it's online, you get to sign up for the website, and when you do that, you don't read the terms and conditions, and the terms and conditions say if anything were to happen to their company and they were to sell out and maybe perhaps go bankrupt, whoever ends up buying the company, anyone at all, now has all of that information and all of that data that was given to them by you because you agreed to it. If someone decides to buy it and they get all of that information, all of your information, all of your DNA makeup, everything about you. So then let's say that they decide that they're going to sell this information to insurance companies. And somewhere along in that DNA makeup of yours, they found out that you are predisposed to multiple illnesses, lots of diseases. So what if then those insurance companies find out about your little illness that you could potentially have and they decide to raise a few premiums? You become a liability for something that you may not even know about that was just in your genetic makeup. Doesn't mean you're going to have this issue, but you potentially could. Now, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but it would be a shame if a big company that collects data went bankrupt, huh?
Y'all, so I grew up with a conspiracy theorist father, and it's just so crazy to think how so many conspiracy theories that if you said in maybe like 2011, 2012, 2013, people would look at you like you're crazy. They're all coming into fruition, if not have already came into fruition. Like, for example, right, if you were to tell people, oh, they're listening to you on your phones and they're in there, you know, like using that to program you and this and that, they would look at you like you're crazy. But now it's common knowledge that our phones listen to us and use that in order to advertise to us. If you were to say that there's a new world order that's being put into place in order to make basically everybody slaves, to make the rich get richer, people would look at you like you were crazy. Now that's just like, oh my God, that's just internet fodder. If you were to say that music is used to program people to think a certain way, act a certain way in order to make certain demographics go into lifestyles that harm them, people would look at you like you were crazy. Some people still do in this day and age, but a lot of people are getting more hip to the truth. And I just think it's so funny because it's like, it just proves how much they try to discredit people and say, oh, these are conspiracy theories, these things are crazy, when truth is always going to be stranger than fiction. Like, truly, a lot of stuff that people acted like was so crazy, it's happening. It's happening. Like, it's happening.
China's got the best map of the moon, and they did send a probe to the other side, so China is looking at the other side. One thing that I like to point out about the moon, 209 moons in the solar system. If you went and looked at all the moons around every planet, because some of them have multiple ones, so there are a bunch of them. None of them, as would be expected mathematically, perfectly occlude the sun. They do not have eclipses.
Do we know that for a fact?
Yeah. Because you know the size of the object. So you know if you're on Jupiter and you measure Callisto, a moon of Jupiter, that's pretty easy to figure out. You know, that thing is that size. Would it cover the sun perfectly? And mathematically, just think about it. What's the likelihood of one object that's in front of you, between you and another object, being perfectly matching it? In other words, and this is what causes it, the moon is 1/400th the diameter of the sun. So you stretch out 400 moons, you'd have the diameter of the sun. But the sun is 400 times further away.
Talk about hitting the lottery.
Exactly, Danny. Exactly. The likelihood of any one object doing that, it's much more likely it's going to be a tad bigger, a tad smaller, a shitload bigger, a shitload smaller. But ours, for whatever reason, and it also always faces us, that's not always the case either. But I don't think it's the case in any of them. We've got an unusual moon.
You can try to change my mind on the sun being a sun simulator. I mean, it still gives us everything that we could possibly need for this body. But go ahead, change my mind. That's a sun simulator. Just take a quick gander at the lens flare. A lens flare is just a reflection of what's above. That's literally, a lens flare is just a reflection of the light above. I don't know if these sunglasses will work or not, but we're gonna look at the sun through them. Yeah, you guys go ahead and tell me that's my camera. I don't believe that that's a camera at all. That's a sun simulator. Look at all the light bulbs.
When I was in high school, I would regularly get in fights with my AP US history teacher about the validity of primary sources. Hear me out on this. My whole argument was, okay, if I really wanted to, I could get me and 50 other people to all journal about something as if it happened. Let's say we all wanted to claim that an asteroid hit in Delaware on February 26, 2024, whatever. We could all write about it. We could probably get people on social media to make videos and tweets about it, whatever, and we could claim it happened. And then in 100, 200, 500 years, however many, historians could look back on all this and be like, oh yeah, according to the sources, an asteroid hit in Delaware on February 26, 2024. If that is entirely possible for me to do today, even in an age where like photographic and video evidence exists, who's to say that people 300 years ago didn't want to come together to prank the future public and all claim that something happened and then just write about it, and then years and years later we refer back to their sources and we're like, oh yeah, that thing happened because they said it did. And my history teacher would always be like, Bianca, what incentive would a group of people in the past have to want to prank future historians? And my answer is like, that sounds like a hilarious thing to do. I feel like we assume silly geese have only been around for like 20 or 30 years. Silly geese have been around forever. There's easily a chance that people in the past wanted to like pull a fun little conspiracy on the future people. Does anyone else follow this or like see what I'm saying? Like, why do we just believe so wholeheartedly in people's goodness and maybe not their potential to get up to hijinks and shenanigans? Let me hear what you have to say about this. I don't know if it's a hot take or if it makes perfect sense.
My conspiracy theory, the hill that I will die on, is if you are both good at your job and a pleasure to work with, like you have a good personality, you can generally get along with people, you will never be promoted. You will never be promoted out of a like hard-working, more junior position where a lot of the hard work exists. Let me explain. If you are in an executive suite, you do not have to be a pleasure to work with or good at your job, right? You don't have to be either of those. If you are at a VP or like director level, you can either be really good at your job or a pleasure to work with. You don't have to be both. And sometimes people are still neither, right? But if you're down here where all of the actual work is being done, it's not being directed, it's not being strategized, you're doing the literal work, they will never allow an employee that is both good at doing the work and good at keeping a smile on their face while doing the work move up that ladder, because they know they can keep serving you shit on a platter and you'll eat it with a smile. I don't know how to get out of that cycle, but I believe in it. It's a curse.
Do you want to know my biggest conspiracy theory, which I think could completely end up in a lawsuit if I had the proof to prove it? It's that the town I grew up in had poison water, which led to people getting cancer all across the town. So my town was really small. It was about 7,000 people in Massachusetts, and I had cancer growing up. And I had cancer shortly after I moved to this town. Through my time growing up, there were 3 other kids who lived on my street who got childhood cancer. And there was actually a girl who had cancer the same time as me, which I do not think is a coincidence. And in our town of 7,000 people, there were like 10 other kids who got cancer. I do not think that is a coincidence. Our classes had like 200 kids in them. And like, people got cancer all the time. It was like really freaky. And that's not even counting the adults that got cancer. And in Massachusetts, they used to be literal battlefields for the American Revolution and all sorts of different things and farming grounds. So they're pouring all this toxic shit into the land. And behind our old middle school, there used to be like literally poison in the woods, so we weren't allowed to go in the woods. And there was that movie with John Travolta about the case in Massachusetts that got busted because this town had toxic water and it was leading people to get cancer. I totally think it was the same thing in my town, and I really wish I could prove it because it could help save lives.
It's all Facebook's fault. All of it. All of this is Facebook's fault. A lot of people credit the rise of the iPhone as a sort of pivotal human moment in terms of our advancement of technology, mobile computing, that sort of thing, and the sort of culture shift. There's been a lot of books that specifically pinpoint the iPhone. The specific figure in our social change was Facebook. As a older millennial, I can assure you, I distinctly remember a time before Facebook and after. Smartphones existed before the iPhone, and there's no doubt that the iPhone had a huge impact. But the reason that we have this division, this anger, this hatred, this chaos is because of Facebook. You used to go onto Facebook and just see a feed of information posts and updates from your friends. But Facebook quickly realized that the way they could sell you more time in advertisement was with anger. When people got angry, they stayed longer on the page, they felt more engaged, and that meant more advertising revenue. In 2017, Facebook changed some of how it interacts with its own algorithm, and it treated emojis like angry, love, sad, and wow as 5 times more valuable than likes. Now, if you're like me or you're younger than me, you probably don't use Facebook for this exact reason. Facebook was used as a tool to spread information, disinformation, and it was weaponized to turn us against each other. And it was quite successful. And what was initially human beings that we now call bots, which are actually automated systems, have propagated and they have changed how we view manufactured consent. And as much as you want to pinpoint to other things, one of the reasons for the discontent we have with each other is because Facebook figured out how to make so much money because of it. Zuck is sitting on a yacht, no doubt, just loving it. And we have all suffered as a result. It's Facebook's fault.
So the Titanic conspiracy theory goes that on the day of the maiden voyage, the Titanic was never actually the Titanic, but was the Olympic, and White Star Line, which is the company that basically created all of these ships, wanted more insurance money because the Olympic was at the point of like complete turndown. They've tried to get insurance money for the ship multiple times, but did not get the correct amount they wanted. So what better ship to sink than the unsinkable ship, right? So with that being said, they go on this maiden voyage, and of course it sinks. With that being said, a fuck ton of money was made because it was supposed to be this unsinkable ship, right? The thing that really does not sit right with me, and the reason why I kind of believe that this is an actual thing that happened, is because a bunch of A-listers that were supposed to be on the maiden voyage decided last minute they didn't want to go. Why did they decide they not want to go? Obviously, everyone was so excited that the maiden voyage was happening, and plus if you're kind of a celebrity, a bigger person, you're gonna want to be on that maiden voyage. Like, that's just something that you're gonna want to do, right? So why did a lot of A-listers and celebrities decide last minute not to go? I don't know, doesn't sit right with me. Another thing that doesn't sit right with me was in 100 miles of where the boat hit the iceberg, there was an empty ship. Besides a crew, there was an empty ship. Why was there an empty ship 100 miles within where it sank? Weird, right? And it was big enough to house everybody on the Titanic. Yeah, doesn't sit right with me. Very weird. And one of the last things is the day of the maiden voyage. Obviously, pictures were being taken. Everyone was so excited about it. It made the papers, all that stuff. Except for the fact that the ship wasn't really looking like Titanic. If you look closely, there are pictures of the Titanic while it's being made, and the portholes on the ship are circular. On the day that the Titanic goes on the maiden voyage, those porthole windows are like long, skinny, rectangular windows. And that's not just something that you can like easily change. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't know. It just like never sat right with me. And so here I am on my soapbox a million years later, still saying I think it was an inside job, because why the hell was an unsinkable ship sinkable? You know what I'm saying?
What I just read was so interesting. You know the Roswell incident? Well, I just came across this document called Alien Interview. Matilda was an army nurse. She claims that this was an alien crash and bodies were recovered. She says the bodies were not biological, but also not mechanical technology. They had an electrical and nervous system that is beyond human comprehension, and they were operated by alien consciousness. Matilda states that of the bodies recovered, one still allowed its conscious to remain in the body, and it communicated with her telepathically because she was able to communicate. So this 300-page document is all about these Army officers and people that want her to interview this alien. They give her questions, but then the alien's always just like, I'm not going to answer those. Let me tell you about your reality. After all of this happens, the Army puts Matilda under witness protection program. They send her out of the country, and apparently she writes this as she's on her deathbed because she's like, the world needs to know now. And these interviews are so interesting. They're so interesting, especially if you take it from the perspective of like, okay, did she just make this up? Because the things they talk about, you're actually like, damn, that kind of makes sense. In one interview, the alien, whose name is A-I-R-L, Earl, but I just like to call him Earl because Earl's a great name. Earl was like, science is basically just the religion of matter. It worships matter. It goes into how dogmatic physical science is, saying it's just as extreme as religion is. And Earl says that because of the bias of scientists, it prevents observation of all phenomenon as an interactive whole. It continues that scientists pretend to observe, but they only suppose what they can see, and they call it fact. Like the blind man, a scientist cannot learn to see until he realizes that he is blind. The facts of Earth science do not include the source of creation. They include only the result or byproducts of creation. The facts of science do not include any memory of the nearly infinite past experience of existence. Like, there's so much in this document where Earl is just basically like, you guys think you're so smart, but you're so dumb. Earl also goes into the vast expansiveness of all creation and talks about the domain and the empire. Earl is from the domain. The old empire is a group that created Earth, I guess, as like a prison planet. And it was wild reading it because it was like oddly similar to the early Christian Gnostics' belief about archons controlling the planet. Earl said that Earth is a ghetto planet because of an intergalactic holocaust. And then it talks about how Earth basically traps you in reincarnation and they zap your memories. But I will say the answer is the same that you find everywhere. Earl was just basically like, you need to go inwards. You need to remember who you are. You need to tap into your love, tap into your power. It will all come back. This is how you overcome the memory wipe and ascend back to what you are, which is consciousness, which is observer of creation, which is divine. Whether this is legit or not legit, it's super interesting, but I do vibe with the message and I agree with it.
I'm a retired FBI agent, and this is a conspiracy theory that keeps me up at night. In 2018, a treasure hunter tipped off the FBI to a large cache of buried, stolen Civil War gold in a rural part of Elk County, Pennsylvania. This treasure hunter had been looking into this since around 2011, probably further back than that. But his research showed that during the Civil War, a secret society known as the Knights of the Golden Circle, a group that operated in the North to sabotage the Northern efforts, one of them being to steal this gold that was on its way to the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia and then hide it. Why they never went back for it, I don't know. This treasure hunter had been operating or doing his research and looking for this stuff, and he located a site that was on public land in Pennsylvania. And he was operating under the permission of the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. It's somewhere along the way, this treasure hunter and the DCNR had a falling out, and he follows this up and goes to the FBI. He told them, or however he convinced them, they took it seriously enough to hire an outside agency to go in and do some very high-tech survey of the property to see if there's any validity to this. And sure enough, this high-tech equipment revealed that there was a large mass of some kind at this site underground. And then the FBI, also using pretty high-tech equipment, determined that there was the presence of gold. They end up getting a seizure warrant through a federal judge. They get a writ of entry that gives them access to the land. They do a 3-day search for this using an excavator and all kinds of techniques, to try to locate this stuff. And they found nothing. No sign of Civil War gold, no sign that anything had been buried there. Now, currently ongoing, there's a lawsuit between this treasure hunter and the FBI. He claims that they did find something and that there's video evidence of this. I don't understand why the site survey shows presence of gold, a large mass under the ground, and then they find absolutely nothing. One of the things that many people that live, residents in the area near this, where this gold is, have said, that the FBI works all night, that they had this equipment going all night long. Well, possibly what that could have been was, it was cold. They probably had generators out there to keep the tents warm that they were in. They had to maintain this property for the full 3 days, because once a search warrant is begun, the government technically owns that property. They have command and control of it. So they had to keep people out there 24/7 for this. That's not unusual. That's pretty normal procedure as well. However, some of the witnesses say that that they were digging all night. So there's a difference between the sound of digging equipment and generators. Okay, so that's first off, that's a little funky. But let's just say that it was generators. Let's throw that aside. The other thing that the witnesses all said was that the FBI brought in on the second day, brought in armored cars. So what is that? What is an armored car? What do you mean by that? Armored car that you see going to a bank to pick up cash or take cash to a bank or a casino, that kind of thing. So that was my question. I wanted to determine what they meant by armored car. And according to the witnesses who were shown photographs of various types of vehicles, they identified a standard armored car that you go to a bank, that you see where cash is, is carried into when they take to a bank. So in 29 years in the FBI, I was in 3 field offices over that time frame. Never once did I ever see the FBI having need, use, or ownership of an armored car. It's just something that never arose. There was no need for it. We weren't in the business of that stuff. So when I started hearing this, and coupled with the fact that they claimed that there was no gold found, nothing found, then why do you need to bring in armored cars? In fact, a couple of witnesses even indicated that the armored cars coming out of there looked like they were heavily laden, like they were riding low. And they had closed off streets in that, so that these armored cars could get through there. If they didn't find anything, why do you need to do that? If it's just your equipment you have up there to do this digging, there's nothing about that. So that really, really troubles me. But then when you ask the real question is, well, the FBI had 25, 30 people maybe there. I don't know the exact number of people they had on scene. All of them would have to be in on this. And what would be the purpose? I mean, the government owns that gold. The FBI is the government. Why would they take this? There's still a lot of questions on this that are really, really troubling to me. And I'm going to get to the bottom of this thing. I'm going to stick with it. Why didn't the treasure hunter just dig this stuff up himself, the gold? And we're talking a lot of gold, worth a lot of money. He was prevented by law from actually digging this up. The land where this gold is on state land, owned by the state of Pennsylvania. And I don't know the full details as to why, but he could not legally dig that up. So he went to the FBI because he thought, well, this is stolen Civil War gold, or stolen gold that belongs to the U.S. government. The FBI would have jurisdiction. And that's another question. What gives the FBI jurisdiction to do this? Well, in fact, actually, I was skeptical of that myself at first, because it's not anything that I had ever worked in my career in the FBI. But there actually is jurisdiction for it. There were a couple of federal statutes that appropriately give the FBI jurisdiction in this, and that's fine. So he went to them. The FBI gets a search warrant for this gold, and they go up, and over a 3-day period, they determine that they dig a big hole, and they determine officially there's no gold. They didn't find anything. It's fully documented. I've extensively read the file, and everything in there to me looks documented the way that it normally would be in a case like this, I guess. So what's the problem? What's compelling about this? Because a lot of times in many search warrants, you may think, you have very good information that you're going to find evidence there, and you don't. I mean, it's happened a lot of times. It's not unusual to not find something. Help us get to the bottom of this. I want to know more about it. I'm going to stick with it.
So my conspiracy theory is that the reason why all these kids are drinking a whole bunch of milk and why schools give kids milk, first of all, we're not supposed to drink that much milk. But I think that at some point, the cattle industry has gotten so large, and there's some type of lobbying or backroom deals that took place where they were like, all right, yo, we got all this extra milk and we need somebody to buy it. So let's come up with studies that determine human people, for regular development, they need to drink constant influx of cow milk. That's just, they gotta do it because that's how humans should develop. You gotta drink this cow milk. Let's come out with studies. Let's come out with commercials. Let's come out with all type of stuff to convince people that they need milk. Let's make all the school districts buy milk. Then we're gonna give these kids milk because somebody just had a surplus of milk because of all the cows and stuff like that were being bred. That's my conspiracy theory. Ain't no way that these kids supposed to go to school every day and drink a damn carton of milk for every day, years and years and years, and we need milk. We need milk? I don't believe it. I think it is a long-standing conspiracy, and I think it is born by greed, and we have been tricked. We do not need milk to grow as human people, okay? And majority of the people are allergic to milk. People's stomach be getting all messed up when they drink milk. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Which theory was the most convincing to you? I enjoyed all of these, but the cursive handwriting one, that was especially creepy. And the one about my family having amassed absolutely nothing over every generation that has ever existed, that one hit pretty hard. I mean, really? Nothing at all. But my favorite is probably that everything I own is worthless when I try to sell it. It's so true. Everything is apparently valuable except for what I own. Funny how that works. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, check out my other two channels, All Time 2 and All Time Clips. Be sure to let me know in the comments what topic you'd like me to cover next because I'm always working on new content for all three channels. Thank you for watching, and until next time, never stop searching.